Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be in the right place at the right time? What if one moment, one single note sung from your heart, could change your life forever? That's exactly what happened during one of Michael Jackson's most iconic concerts. He stopped everything, the band, the lights, the entire stadium of 80,000 people, all because he heard a voice that wasn't his. Today, we're diving deep into the story of how a legendary king of pop concert came to a screeching halt, all to find a mystery singer whose impromptu duet with Michael would go down in history. This isn't just a fan story. This is the stuff of legends. The year is 1992. Imagine a stadium pulsating with raw energy, a sea of 80,000 souls chanting one name: Michael. The Dangerous World Tour was in full swing, and it was more than just a concert. It was a global phenomenon. Every stop was a spectacle of pyrotechnics, flawless choreography, and pure, unadulterated musical genius. On this particular night, the air was electric, charged with anticipation. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was in his element, a whirlwind of white socks, sequins, and impossibly smooth moves. He was in the middle of a powerful ballad, pouring his heart out to a captivated audience. The stadium was a universe of flashing lighters and mesmerized faces, all hanging on his every word. But then, something happened. Something completely off script. Right in the middle of a delicate, emotional verse of Man in the Mirror, Michael faltered. For a split second, his eyes lost focus. He tilted his head, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. The band, professionals at the top of their game, continued playing, assuming it was just a moment of artistic improvisation. The crowd, lost in the magic, didn't notice a thing at first. But Michael had stopped singing. He held his microphone by his side, his gaze sweeping over the vast, dark ocean of people before him. He heard something else, a thread of sound so pure and beautiful it cut through the stadium's roar. It was a voice, a female voice soaring with effortless grace, harmonizing with the melody he had just been singing. It wasn't a backup singer. He knew their voices intimately. This was different. It was raw, untrained, yet impossibly perfect. It held a kind of soulful echo that seemed to come from the very heart of the crowd itself. For a moment, he thought he was imagining it, a phantom echo created by the massive acoustics of the stadium. But there it was again, a clear, bell-like tone that sent shivers down his spine. It was a voice filled with such genuine emotion and power that it made the hairs on his arm stand up. With a sudden, decisive motion, Michael raised his hand, the universal signal to stop. The music died down abruptly, the drummer catching the cue first, followed by a confused cascade of silence from the rest of the band. The stadium lights, which had been a whirlwind of color, froze in place. The roar of the crowd morphed into a murmur of confusion. 80,000 people collectively wondered what was happening. Was it a technical difficulty? Was Michael unwell? The silence was deafening, amplified by the sheer scale of the venue. All eyes were on the lone figure on stage, bathed in a single spotlight. On stage, Michael's team was in a state of controlled panic. Stage managers whispered frantically into their headsets, and security personnel tensed, scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. This was unprecedented. Michael Jackson never stopped a show. Ever. The entire production was timed to the millisecond, a well-oiled machine of perfection. For him to halt everything mid-song meant something was seriously wrong, or something was incredibly right. Michael ignored the hushed chaos around him. He walked to the edge of the stage, peering into the darkness, his face a mask of intense concentration. The crowd's confusion grew into a tangible wave of whispers and questions. "I heard a voice," Michael finally said, his own voice amplified to fill the stadium, yet sounding intimate and hushed. A beautiful voice. A ripple of excitement and disbelief went through the crowd. Who? Where? Was this part of the show? He shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. No, not my singers, he clarified, gesturing toward his incredible backup vocalists who looked just as confused as everyone else. Out there! He pointed a single gloved finger out into the vast expanse of the audience. The spotlight operators scrambled, trying to follow his gesture into the impossible darkness of the stands. The search felt impossible. How do you find one voice in a crowd of 80,000? Security guards started moving slowly through the aisles, their flashlights cutting uselessly through the dark. Michael remained on stage, a patient statue refusing to continue. He knew what he heard. It wasn't just good singing, it was a kindred spirit. He could feel it. The voice had the same love for the music that he did. It wasn't someone seeking attention, it was someone lost in the moment, singing from the soul, just as he was. And he was not going to let that moment slip away into the night. The crowd's mood began to shift from confusion to a collective sense of wonder. They were no longer just spectators at a concert. They were part of a mystery. Who was this mystery singer? People started looking at their neighbors, whispering, pointing. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, but it was a magical tension. It was the feeling that they were all on the cusp of witnessing something truly unique, a moment of spontaneous magic that could never be replicated. The show had been derailed, but something far more interesting was taking its place. Michael provided the only clue he had. He walked back to his microphone and, in the silent stadium, he sang the single, soaring note he had heard. The note echoed, pure and clear, a musical, wanted poster. "Who was that?" he asked again, his voice filled with genuine curiosity and admiration. "Please, don't be shy." The silence that followed was even more profound than before. The entire stadium held its breath, waiting. The world's biggest pop star had stopped the world's biggest show, all in search of a single, anonymous voice in the crowd. The minutes stretched on, feeling like an eternity. The promoters were likely having heart attacks backstage, but Michael was immovable. He understood that moments like these were the essence of music. It wasn't about the perfect choreography or the dazzling lights. It was about connection. It was about the shared language of a melody. He had spent his life searching for moments of pure, unscripted beauty, and now one had found him in the middle of his own meticulously crafted universe. He was willing to wait all night if he had to. The legend was about to be born, and it all started with that one audacious pause. The search intensified. What started as a few security guards cautiously navigating the aisles turned into a full-scale, albeit gentle, operation. Michael's personal security chief, a man who had seen everything, was on stage, communicating through his earpiece with teams deployed throughout the stadium's various sections. The problem was immense. The voice had been angelic, but sound in a stadium plays tricks. It bounces, it echoes, it can seem to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The initial sweep of the front sections yielded nothing but starstruck fans who swore it wasn't them, though they wished it was. The energy in the arena was a bizarre mix of restlessness and electric anticipation. On stage, Michael tried to help. He would have the band play the short musical phrase leading up to the moment he heard the voice, hoping to jog the memory of the person or someone near them. He was a musical detective, trying to recreate the scene of the crime, a crime of beautiful, unintentional melody. He described the voice to his team over the open mic for the whole stadium to hear. "It was like water," he said, searching for the words. "Clear, and it had this little break in it, this little bit of soul. It wasn't loud, it was just perfect." This public vulnerability was captivating. The king of pop, the untouchable icon, was showing a side of himself that was purely about the art. Far back in the stands, in one of the cheaper sections where the stage looked like a distant, glittering postage stamp, a young woman named Sarah was trying to become invisible. Her face was flushed, and her heart was hammering against her ribs so hard she was sure the people next to her could hear it. Her friends were grabbing her arm, whispering frantically, "Sarah, that was you! That was you!" She shook her head, mortified. She hadn't meant for anyone to hear her, let alone Michael Jackson himself. She was just a music teacher who adored him, and in that moment the song had taken her over. She sang along, not for attention, but because her heart demanded it. The search seemed to be fruitless. The security teams were reporting back negative results. The crowd was beginning to murmur more loudly, the novelty wearing off for some. You could feel a subtle shift, a collective impatience growing. Backstage, the tour manager was pleading with Michael through his in-ear monitor to restart the show. They were on a tight schedule. City ordinances, broadcast timings, everything was at risk. But Michael simply shook his head, his focus unbroken. He trusted his ear, and he trusted the magic of the moment. He was not giving up. He felt a deep, artistic conviction that this was important. Then, a small break. A man a few rows in front of Sarah, emboldened by his friends, waved his arms frantically at a passing security guard. "She's here! The girl who was singing is right here!" he shouted, pointing directly at Sarah. A flashlight beam, harsh and sudden, cut through the darkness and landed squarely on her. Sarah froze, like a deer in headlights. The chatter in the surrounding rows immediately died down, and a small pocket of silence and stares formed around her. Her friends were now jumping up and down, a mixture of excitement and terror on their faces. It was happening. The security guard, a large, imposing man, approached her cautiously. He spoke into his radio, his voice low. "I think we might have her. Section 314, row 22. The message was relayed to the stage. A wave of murmurs rippled out from Section 314 as thousands of people turned to stare. Michael, on stage, heard the communication in his earpiece. His gaze snapped towards the back of the stadium. "Bring the lights up on Section 314, he commanded. Suddenly, a massive spotlight, usually reserved for the stage, swung across the arena and flooded Sarah's section with brilliant white light. For Sarah, the world shrank to the size of that blinding beam. She was completely exposed. 80,000 pairs of eyes were now fixed on her. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. She was just a regular person, and now she was the center of attention at a Michael Jackson concert for all the wrong reasons. The security guard gently touched her arm. "Ma'am, Mr. Jackson would like to speak with you." Her mind went blank. This couldn't be real. It was a dream, a surreal, terrifying, wonderful dream. Her friends had to physically help her stand up, her legs having turned to jelly. The journey from her seat felt like a mile-long trek across a foreign planet. The crowd parted for her, and the security detail, a strange mix of applause and whispers following her path. Some people reached out to touch her arm, as if she were some kind of chosen one. On the giant screens that flanked the stage, her terrified face was now broadcast in stunning high definition. There was nowhere to hide. She could see Michael on the stage, watching her approach with a gentle, encouraging smile. He looked even more ethereal and unreal up close. When she finally reached the side of the stage, a crew member helped her up the stairs. Stepping onto that stage was like stepping into another dimension. The heat from the lights, the sheer size of the crowd stretching into infinity, it was completely overwhelming. She felt incredibly small and out of place. Michael walked over to her, his presence both calming and utterly intimidating. He took her hand, and a jolt of electricity shot through her. The crowd roared, a deafening sound that was part of a world she had only ever observed from a distance. Michael leaned in and spoke softly, his voice for her ears only, though the entire stadium watched. "I heard you," he said, his eyes sparkling with genuine delight. "That was beautiful. Don't be scared." He handed her a microphone. "What's your name?" he asked, this time into his own mic for the world to hear. "Sarah," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Sarah," Michael repeated, his voice booming across the stadium. "Well, Sarah, the whole world is waiting. Would you do me the honor of singing that part again, but this time with me?" The moment had arrived. The search was over, but the legend was just beginning. The request hung in the air, echoing across the silent stadium. "Sing with Michael Jackson." Sarah's mind reeled. It was an impossible, absurd request. She was a music teacher who sang in a local choir, not a professional vocalist prepared to perform for 80,000 people. She looked at the microphone in her trembling hand, then at the sea of faces staring back at her, and finally at Michael. His expression was open, patient, and full of a profound belief in her that she didn't have in herself. He gave her a reassuring nod, a silent message that said, "It's okay. Just feel the music." That simple gesture cut through her panic. He turned to the band. "From the bridge," he instructed, "a little softer this time." The musicians, who had been watching the drama unfold with as much curiosity as the audience, nodded in understanding. The keyboardist began with a gentle, stripped-down version of the melody. It was intimate, almost like a private rehearsal, yet it was being broadcast to the entire world. Michael started singing the lead-in, his voice a soft, guiding light. He looked at Sarah, his eyes signaling her entry. This was her moment. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, she closed her eyes and sang. The note that came out was pure, untainted by fear. It was the same effortless, soulful harmony he had heard from the crowd, only now it was crystal clear, amplified for everyone to hear. A collective gasp went through the audience. It was real. The voice was as magical as he had described. Michael smiled, a wide, genuine grin of pure joy. As she held the note, he joined in, his own voice weaving around hers in a perfect, unplanned dance. It wasn't his usual backup singer's polished blend. This was something raw, something spontaneous and alive. Their voices, one a global icon and the other a complete unknown, locked together in an embrace of perfect harmony. What happened next was pure, unadulterated magic. They didn't just repeat the one part. Michael, improvising completely, gestured to the band to keep playing. He began to ad-lib, singing new lines, and Sarah, caught in the musical current, followed his lead. She harmonized, she echoed his phrases. She even took a small, breathtaking solo when he stepped back and gave her the spotlight. She forgot the 80,000 people, she forgot the cameras, she forgot everything but the music and the man singing next to her. It was a conversation, spoken in the universal language of melody. The audience was completely transfixed. They were witnessing something that could never be planned or rehearsed. It was a moment of pure, lightning-in-a-bottle creation. People were crying. They weren't just watching a performance. They were feeling the power of a dream coming true right before their eyes. The rigid structure of the concert had shattered, and in its place was this beautiful, chaotic and deeply human connection. The giant screen showed close-ups of both their faces, Michael's, full of admiration and joy, and Sarah's, a portrait of someone discovering a part of herself she never knew existed. As the final notes of their improvised duet faded into the stadium, a profound silence fell for a single heartbeat. Then the stadium erupted. The applause was not just applause, it was a physical force, a tidal wave of emotion and appreciation that washed over the stage. It was louder than any cheer that night. It was a thank you for the magic, for the authenticity, for the reminder that incredible things can happen when you least expect them. Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, completely overwhelmed by the sound. Michael put his arm around her and held her hand up to the cheering crowd. He leaned into the microphone one last time before the show would eventually continue. "Give it up for Sarah," he yelled, his voice thick with emotion. "You were magnificent." He hugged her, a genuine, heartfelt embrace, and whispered in her ear, "Never stop singing." As security gently guided a dazed Sarah off the stage and back towards her friends, the world knew it had just seen something special. The rest of the concert was amazing, but that unplanned duet was the only thing anyone talked about for weeks, months, and years to come. It became a story passed between fans, a bootleg recording that was more precious than any official album. The aftermath was life-changing, not just for Sarah, but for the story of music itself. Sarah was inundated with offers from record labels and producers. While she never sought to become a pop star, she went on to have a successful career as a session vocalist and songwriter. Forever grateful for the night, the king of pop heard her voice in the crowd. She often said in interviews that the most important thing Michael gave her wasn't a career, but the courage to believe in her own gift. The duet was never officially released, making it all the more legendary. The story became a powerful testament to Michael Jackson's true nature as an artist. It showcased his deep, abiding love for music in its purest form. He didn't care about schedules or perfection in that moment. He cared about beauty. He was willing to stop the entire world just to listen. It proved he wasn't just a performer on a stage, but an artist who was constantly connected to the pulse of the music and the people who loved it just as much as he did. And so, the legend of the impromptu duet lives on. It's a reminder that the greatest moments in life are often the ones we don't plan. It's a story about a king who paused his parade to listen to the song of a commoner, and in doing so, created a moment of pure, democratic, musical beauty. It reminds us all to sing like no one is listening, because you never know when the one person who matters most might be.